Okay, so let's go into it. So let's start with understanding Satan and Yahweh. Okay, this is very dynamic, and this really intrigues me as well. And this is something, I want to be honest, and I want to be clear from the beginning of this video. This is something that I'm still continuously unpacking. The connection between Satan and the connection between Yahweh. Okay, this is something that I will continuously to unpack, and I will gain more understanding of as time goes on. But as of right now, I have a pretty solid perspective on the connection between Yahweh and Satan. Okay? Now, right off the bat, there may be some people that are like, what are you even talking about, a connection between Yahweh and Satan? Well, this is what's already intriguing just in general from the Bible itself. Okay? You have the main God, the one who is omnipotent, omnipresent, and he controls everything. He controls everything. Okay? And this is Yahweh. Okay? In Judaic texts, in Judaic scripture, this was the deity, this was the God, that was the God of everything, all other spirits, entities, and gods. Okay? Now, obviously, as I said, within Christianity and within Judaic text, there is a primary adversary. Okay? And the primary adversary is Satan. Okay? So, for somebody like me, who embraces the darker side of evolutionary self-development and understands the clip-off, which is the tree that exists underneath the tree, and exists in the areas of the multiverse that are more dark energy prominent, there are essentially 11 spheres on that tree. And every single sphere has a specific arch-demonic force or forces associated with those spheres. Now that's interesting, but the question comes up as to why is Satan depicted as the bottom, or you could look at it as the top sphere of the clip-off, which represents Thamael. So when you pull up a picture of the clip-othic tree, you're going to see that the sphere number 1, or the top of that clip-othic tree, is literally ruled by Satan. And then you bring correspondence into Christianity and Judaic teachings and Judaic text, and in the more so mainstream aspects of Judaism, which once again is Christianity, Satan has become the primary adversary. Okay, so how come Lilith, Samael, Beelzebub, Lucifuge, Lucifer even, I know a lot of people confuse Lucifer and Satan as the same entity or the same force, same energetic force, and they're not. Or, Adrammelech, Baal, Astaroth, Azazel. How come none of these other forces made it to be the primary adversary of Christianity? And this, for any occultist, any professional or real occultist, this brings up a question. Why is Satan the primary force, or at least one of the most primary forces of that clip-othic tree? Okay? There's got to be some significance to that, because when you look at the tree of life, you have the 10 spheres of the Sephiroth that go upwards, and then if you look at the tree of the clip-off, which represents shells in Hebrew, or husks, you have Satan, you have those 10 spheres of the clip-off underneath the tree of life. Now, at the top of the Sephirothic tree, you would have Yahweh. Okay? This is the realm of illusions. Okay? This is the realm of illusionary reality and illusionary light, you could say. So, the Sephirotic tree is an aspect of the multiverse we live in that is necessary, but if you only exist in that aspect, then you're living in objective reality where you're constantly listening to what others are programming you to listen to and to believe. And all of that energy is being, you could say, placed into a force when it comes to the religion of Christianity, which is the entity of Yahweh. So essentially, Yahweh rules the Sephirotic tree, okay, as an entity. You could even say as an archetypal force. So this is going to manifest in people that, listen to the world around them to be told what next steps they should take in life, rather than processing what's actually going on in their own physical body and energy field, rather than processing what's happening in their unconscious and their subconscious. They're just listening to what's being told around them and making decisions off of what they're being told. They're not questioning things. They're going with the flow without any sense of individuality. Okay? And obviously, when it comes to Christianity, and you have Yahweh as the arch force of Christianity, underneath you have Jesus Christ and you have the Holy Spirit, which are just different aspects of Yahweh. Yahweh has you worship this entity outside of yourself under the hopes that Yahweh will take care of you in the real world, in reality itself. When in reality, when you study the history of Yahweh worshipers, they lost everything. Okay, if you go back to the roots of Yahweh, you will see that the followers of Yahweh literally were demolished. They lost everything. Okay? So obviously Yahweh is not the one and only God. It is just another energetic force that we can consider an entity. Okay? And it has a specific program installed within its energetic field. And once again, we're talking about Yahweh. So once again, the people that are following Yahweh, they're worshiping this force that is very freely and willingly taking and actually wanting the energy from its followers. Although the force claims to grant you life or eternal life in heaven after death, in the real world, while you're worshiping the force, what you can expect is suffering and basically a mediocre life, a mediocre type of living. But all the suffering you're going through in the real world, in reality, is paying off so that you can live a sublime life in the afterworld. Okay? Now, obviously, there's a lot of red flags to that. Okay? But this is the result of what happens to a human being when they follow a force like Yahweh. And Yahweh is structured at the top of the Sephiroth. Okay? Yahweh as an entity, remember, we're talking about an entity, which is an archetypal force in itself and has its own energetic program to it, which manifests in many different ways and different avenues in the real world today. So there's influence that goes behind this force Yahweh, but we're not going to get into that within this video. We're going to focus on the force itself, the archetype itself, the entity itself. Okay? So as we look at Yahweh, we see that Yahweh is upholding the world of illusions. In regards to, the more you worship Yahweh, the more you ask for forgiveness of your sins, which, what are truly the sins? The sins can manifest in a couple different ways. It can manifest as bad decisions that are under the law of cause and effect, meaning you make a poor choice and then you get the result from that poor choice. And it can also manifest in your own unconscious and subconscious. And that's the most often times that sins do manifest. They manifest in the unconscious and the subconscious. So what is within your unconscious and your subconscious is dark in nature, dark energy. And in the Christian religion, you are told those are sins and they're bad, and that you need to ask Yahweh for forgiveness of your own unconscious and subconscious nature, which is not good for you. Okay, so we see that this is taking place with Yahweh. Okay, and the followers of Yahweh are, first of all, worshiping this entity as if it's going to take care of them in the real world, when in reality, it doesn't. It only withholds you in the realm of illusions. Okay? So in regards to you living a life of complete freedom, being financially free, being free to say and think things that you want that are based on your own evolutionary progress, being able to do what you want when you want, this is a part of freedom, and there's a process to get there. This force of Yahweh prevents the individual from ever being free based on all of the different aspects and faculties that go into that entity itself. Okay, so all of the followers and people who follow the religion of Christianity and worship Yahweh as the one and only God, they are going to get the exact same outcome where they are going to be lacking freedom. Because the entire religion is programmed around deeming or making your own unconscious and subconscious a bad thing, an evil thing. And that will forever prevent you from getting total freedom. Okay, there's people that can be religious and can believe Yahweh is the only God and create certain levels of freedom, maybe some sort of financial freedom, as long as you have other disciplines in play. But they're going to be lacking a sense of satisfaction because the soul will never be free. And if they decide they truly want to get in touch with their soul, they're going to lose a lot of that illusionary reality that they spent so long and hard building up. Okay? So we have Yahweh who holds up illusionary reality. Okay? In regards to a Kabbalistic perspective, the Sephirothic tree. Then, when it comes to the Qlippothic tree, we have Satan at the sphere of Thamael. Okay? Now, this is very interesting because, as I said earlier, Satan is the main adversary within Christianity. So that alone is very intriguing because there's a lot of other dark forces that exist. So why is it Satan? And if you go to the roots of Judaism and the roots of Yahweh, you will see that in the older texts mentioning Yahweh, that Satan was never an adversary. Satan used to never be an adversary of Yahweh. Rather, Satan basically used to do the bidding of Yahweh. Very interesting. Okay, so we look in our today's time, 2022, and we look at religion, and just in general, we see a lot of dualistic perspectives and dualistic thinkings, good versus evil, good versus evil, good versus evil. But specifically zoomed in on Christianity, you see Yahweh versus Satan. But the roots of Yahweh and Yahweh's existence, when you trace them back, and I encourage all of you to do your own research on the subject matter, when you trace the roots back of Yahweh and Yahweh's worshipers, literally the roots of Yahweh being created as an entity, you will find that Satan was never an adversary. Satan had an adversarial nature, but was never pinned against Yahweh. Rather, Yahweh used Satan to test his followers. Okay? So what does this mean? What does this represent? This is showing clear signs that there's a very misunderstood but profound connection between Yahweh and Satan, almost as if they are the same energetic force, just different aspects of the same force. Very interesting. So when we look at Yahweh, and we would see in the more ancient roots of Yahweh itself, Yahweh would use Satan to, quote unquote, develop his followers' devotion, essentially, by tempting them or testing them. And if they could pass the test of Satan, then they would be a better follower of Yahweh, which ultimately leads to nothing important, but that's the idea. So Yahweh and Satan were working simultaneously, but under the roots of Yahweh, first being worshipped and using Satan, Yahweh basically was commanding Satan to test certain types of individuals so that it could improve their following capabilities if they pass the test. Okay? Now, that's extremely fascinating because we see there is no Yahweh versus Satan. Okay, that didn't even exist. This apocalyptic viewpoint of good versus evil didn't used to exist. Okay, do your research on these things that I'm talking about. You will find that there used to be a point in time, a couple thousand years ago, where there was no apocalyptic viewpoint. There was no good versus evil. There was no good versus evil. Let me say that again and be very clear. There was no good and evil. It was just certain types of energies do certain types of things, and there was a common pattern of people worshiping these energies to gain power from them. Okay? So the reason why this is so fascinating is because we asked the question, well then why, in today's time, is Satan now the main adversary of Yahweh? And there's definitely a reason to that. And I'm going to unpack a little bit of that from a more so occult, black magic perspective. Okay? So the reality is there is an energetic association between Yahweh being the top of the Sephiroth and Satan being the bottom of the Clipoth. Okay? They are not forces that are in war with each other. These are forces that work dynamically together. Okay? And obviously, for those of you that see the problems, the evolutionary blockages within religious thinking, then you can clearly see that Yahweh and Satan, if you're going to worship them in general, is not a good idea. Okay? So Yahweh and Satan may be two different aspects of the same force that are intended to potentially mislead. Okay? And this is where the concept of Satanism comes into play, because we hear in our today's time of Satanists. There are the Illuminati that are Satanists. There are people, occultists, black magicians that are Satanists. Okay? And the first thing that a lot of people think of when they hear about Satanism is they just think about black magic, usually on a intense level, which, could fall on the lines of human sacrifice, all types of stuff. Okay, stuff you typically will see in movies. Okay, all the dark and demonic stuff. So when people hear this word Satanism, they're typically thinking very destructive types of black magic to harm individuals. And let's be honest. Let's be very honest. Let's unpack Satanism a little bit more. The reality of Satanism is that it does get intense. Okay, let's break it down in just the word itself. Satanism, Satan, okay, can we agree that Satanism revolves around Satan? Okay. Satan is also associated with the planetary energy of Saturn. Okay, Satan, Saturn. Satan, Saturn. There is an association between the two. Okay. So Saturn is represented as death, isolation, fear, anxiety. Okay. And then on the, you could say, higher polarity, it represents crystallization, structure, order, and discipline. These are some of the primary components of Saturn as a planetary energy. So when we look at Satanism, we can see the intense aspect of it. Thank you for the chicken, confirming. We can see there is a correspondence between Satan and Saturn, and then Satanism. Okay? So what I personally find very interesting, as I've mentioned throughout this video, is that in its ancient roots, Yahweh never was enemies with a Satan figure. But then in our more so today's time, 2022 as I'm saying this, you see that Satan is the primary adversary. Okay, and as I said, I discussed this in this video, how this fascinates me. But what I see here is that there has to be some sort of similarity between Yahweh and Satan. And I also want to throw in the correspondence of Thamael, which is within the Klipothic realm, in regards to it being the double-headed serpent, or the twin serpents, the dual serpents. Okay? Thamael is a Klipothic sphere that represents the dual serpents. Okay? Go ahead, do some more research on it yourself, and you will come to find this out. Now, what's interesting about Thamael is it's traditionally ruled by two different archdemonic forces. The first one is Satan, and then the second one is Moloch. Moloch is a solar figure, a war god, a solar war god, and Satan is a Saturnian energy, energy that is destructive, represents fear, represents anxiety, and destruction of artificial awareness. Okay, so Satan destroys the Christians. Satan is the enemy of the religious. Okay, if you're not religious and your awareness is not artificially programmed by religion or religious types of thinking, then you're not going to be affected by Satan in a way that is not beneficial to you. Satan actually can become a very powerful energetic aspect within yourself as you process yourself using that energy of Satan. Okay, basically what I'm saying is Satan can be a tool of power if you're an occultist, okay, by downloading its power into yourself. But what I'm trying to show a connection between is that Thamael represents the twin serpents, which from one perspective represents duality on a very profound degree. Obviously, Saturn and the Sun are very different planetary energies. Okay, the Sun is solar, and Saturn is more so dark and cold. Okay, but Yahweh is also a solar entity that's also known to be warlike in nature. And I just find that there's a correspondence there. And once again, this is just me sharing my perspective on the matter. None of this is necessarily written down in stone. I'm pretty sure you're not going to find this in any books. This is stuff that I've been able to perceive and that I think I just, wanted to share publicly to see, if anyone else may have noticed this type of correspondence, or just putting it out there and seeing, what happens as I share this observation that I have. But it is very significant that Thamael represents the twin serpent, and Satan and Moloch, Saturn and the sun, are the two planetary energies or two archdemonic forces within the sphere of Thamael. And then you come to the tradition religion, you come to Christianity, and think about all the other religions that are influenced by Christianity as well. And you see there is this clear correspondence between Satan, primarily Satan, and a solar entity known as Yahweh. So basically what I'm saying here is that what I'm seeing is that there is no real there is no warfare between a Yahweh and a Satan. In reality, in the real deep aspect of these energetic components, there is no battle between Satan and Yahweh. Okay? There is no battle between this Saturnian force and this solar force. All there is a form of energetic generation. Okay? What do I mean by that? All there is a form of energetic generation. Okay? So a lot of people are like, what are you talking about? What I mean by this is that with a religion like Christianity, okay, a lot of people say, oh my gosh, why is it like that? Why does it have to be that way? This is wrong. We need to fix it. And then there's a lot of people that are locked into Christianity or religious types of perspectives and ways of thinking. But remember, when you zoom way far out, when you look at it from an evolutionary perspective, there's a reason why Christianity exists. And as I've discussed many times on my YouTube channel, there's a powerful energy that emanates when something is in a state of pressure, torture, whether that's psychological, mental, emotional, and even physical, where there's some form of suffering, torture, pressure being placed on an individual. Now, depending on the individual it's being placed on, you can turn that into your power from going through the experience, or you can get crushed by it and just not turn it to your power. But regardless, what I'm saying is that there is energy being generated, okay, when that pressure is put on you. And when you have a religion that's strategically, intentionally set up in the real world, 2022, which has, been going on for quite some time now, where there is this force of Yahweh that is the complete opposition of this force of Satan, and that Satan is the bad force. Satan is the evil one, the one that wants your soul, and Yahweh is pictured as this force that's here to save you from Satan. When, as I just discussed, and if you do your own research, you'll find this too, date it back far enough, Yahweh and Satan were never at war. They were never at war. Satan used to follow Yahweh and used to do what Yahweh basically wanted him to do, which was testing his followers to see how strong they were as followers. So I find it strange that in our today's time, we see this very strong duality being placed with Yahweh and Satan being arch enemies, and then the sphere of Thamael also representing Satan and Moloch, the solar and the Saturnian force, Yahweh also being a war god, a solar force. That's why he has the son of Jesus, or the son of God, who is Jesus. That is his, avatar in the real world. And then you have the Holy Spirit behind it. So there is clearly a correspondence taking place between the sphere of Thamael, representing ultimate duality, and then this religion that we see with Christianity, with Yahweh and Satan, at war against each other. And as I was saying, to take it full circle about the energy that gets generated from suffering, from pain, from torture, and even physical death. Let's be honest. This is real. Okay, this is stuff that's not talked about often, mainly because Obviously a lot of people do not understand this, and it's not something that's easy to understand. It's something that takes a lot of processing that you have to go through to understand this concept. But when you suffer, when you go through pain, whatever type of pain or whatever type of suffering it is, there is energy being generated. Now, once again, it is up to you whether that energy goes to you and your own power, or if it's going to someone that's tricking you into giving it away to somebody else. And what is the primary concept of Christianity? You suffer, you turn your cheek, pray for your enemies, forgive your enemies, pray for their forgiveness, and then turn towards God, giving away the power that you get from suffering. Okay? So what I'm saying in regards to the religious belief system of specifically Christianity, and this affects many other religions as well, just remember that Christianity influences so many other different types of religions as well in the real world. What if Christianity was set up to be a program in the real world today, operating as we speak right now, to be a program to destroy whoever falls into the trap? Where in reality, there is no war against Yahweh and Satan. What if they're the same energies, but what if they're the same energetic force operating under different aspects? What if Yahweh and what if Satan were both a part of Thamael, so to speak, or some aspect of the Clipoth? And what if they're just playing an evolutionary role representing ultimate duality? And whoever falls into that ultimate duality, whether it's the left or the right, then you get checked by evolution. Then you get the, you could say, not so fortunate results of that religion. Okay? So hopefully you're able to follow what it is that I'm saying here. Okay? What if Yahweh and Satan were never at war? Which is, if you go back to the root, we clearly can tell. And what if they're not at war currently? Which they're not. And what if this entire religion of Christianity, the way that we see it now, the way that you read it in the New Testament, the Old Testament, specifically in the New Testament right now, what if these forces were actually working together and they represent a darker undertone of evolution, which is whoever falls in the trap of Christianity, of religious thinking, artificial programmed intelligence, then they're the ones that are going to suffer and generate energy for those that are controlling the program. Okay? Satan in today's time Christian religion is the archetypal enemy of Christians. It truly, in its wider form of its archetype, is the archetypal energy of religious thinkers, religious believers. That is what Satan represents. So what does that mean in the real world today? If you're literally looking at it from a scientific perspective, if you understand how archetypes work, if you think religiously, if you allow yourself to be indoctrinated to believe things that you are not really sure of, but you're just having a blind faith in those types of beliefs, hoping that it's going to get you to where you think you actually want to be. If you're someone that allows yourself to be consumed by religious programming and religious beliefs and perspectives, then guess who your enemy is going to become? The other archetype of the adversary, which in this case is Satan. And guess what's going to happen when you start falling into that religious programming and that religious perspective of not only just your own being, not only just yourself, your soul and your spirit, but the world around you. Now you're initiating warfare. by falling into that religious programming with the archetypal enemy, which is Satan. And Satan just happens to be at the bottom of the Qlipothic tree, which has the ability to unleash all the other Qlipothic forces on yourself, on whoever it is that's religious and coming from that religious belief system or that religious perspective. Okay? So what am I saying in its nutshell? What if Christianity was created as a religion? And this may not even be something that was fully conscious by whoever created it. This could be something unconscious and subconscious that has extraterrestrial influence that's involved. But what if this religion, going all the way back to its root into our today's time when it formed its form as we know today as Christianity, modern Christians, and every other religion that is self-similar to that, energetically speaking, what if it was created to find individuals that fall into the trap of religion and then can be destroyed by the Satan, the head, or not, I don't want to say necessarily the head, but the bottom of the Qlipothic realm? And what if this religion was programmed to not only do that, I mean, this goes deep, to solidify the universe A aspect of the Qlipoth itself, where people's souls get shelled in the underworld, similar to what you saw in the movie The Matrix when Neo took the red pill and then he woke up in the shell. What if Thamael, representing ultimate duality, the twin serpent, was two different aspects of the same serpent? Yahweh being the solar war god, one aspect of the serpent. Satan, the Saturnian adversary, the other aspect of the serpent. And what if, in religion, in Christianity, with that dualistic perspective of good versus evil, God versus Satan, what if God and Satan were a part of the same force, the same energetic current, you could say? And if this is true, and if what I'm saying is right, which I truly believe it is, and obviously you can have your own perspectives on the matter. Once again, none of this is like written in stone. I don't know anybody else that's talking about this. This is stuff that just intrigues me and I thought I would share publicly. But what if this religion of Christianity was specifically programmed and designed to find people that can be programmed with religion so that they can then be consumed by the other serpents? Okay, the Satan archetype and all the other arch-Qlipothic forces that are, you could say, adversarial towards religious thinking, because it goes against evolution. All the demonic, arch-demonic forces, they're dark energy in nature. They come from that source of evolutionary chaos, which is the dark feminine, which is the Tiamat force, the black dragon. And they're created to cause evolution. So obviously when you install a religion into a multiverse, into a mass collective, into a society where you trick people using their solar intelligence, their ego, their sense of self-importance, their analytical, logical, and intellectual thinking, then you can start devouring them using dark energy, the unconscious and subconscious aspects of their own being. You can start destroying them with the unconscious and the subconscious. And guess what? Those that are aware of this process and know how to use it are the ones, like myself, that gain the power and that gain the energy from it. Okay, similar to the movie Mortal Kombat, when you have the chosen mark of the what? The black dragon, right there on my arm. When you have the chosen mark of the black dragon, you're chosen. You're one of the people that understands the unconscious and the subconscious and realizes it's very important for spiritual power and evolution. But in the movie Mortal Kombat, if you don't have the mark of the black dragon, the way that you get it is by killing somebody that has it. And then the mark transitions, or I should say transfers, onto the person who didn't originally have it. Okay? This is the concept that takes place when you know how to use psychic energies to eliminate other life, artificial life at that. Life that is not aware of its true evolutionary nature. And when you can put pressure on that artificial life or that artificial awareness, you could even say artificial intelligence, you upline the energy to yourself as the source that puts it on. So whoever programmed Christianity and all these other religions, there were people gaining power and energy the entire time as they were upholding this religious program. Okay? Now I know, trust me, I know a lot of this can fly over people's heads. I know a lot of what I'm sharing can sound absolutely out of the field, out of the ballpark, so to speak. But, once again, you don't need to agree with what it is that I'm saying. These are things that are not written in stone. This is not something that I have a for sure answer on that I can just pinpoint and say, this is exactly what it is with 100% confidence. But this is something that I definitely 100% do resonate with. And I thought it was valuable enough to share publicly. And obviously, now that it's shared publicly, maybe there will be a few other people that resonate with the same subject and topic as well. So to wrap the entire video up in a nutshell, what I said is that the religion of Christianity was programmed intentionally, may have been unconscious, subconscious, or even consciously, to be a program that locks people into essentially Thamael, the ultimate state of duality. Okay, the twin serpent. The twins of that serpent are Yahweh and Satan in regards to the Christian religion. And if you side with Yahweh, guess what? You are going to be devoured by the Satan. And that's literally how the religion is projected, because the solar figure is always the figure that gets devoured. Okay, because the solar represents the intellect, the mind, the logic, and the awareness. And you can easily manipulate someone. You can easily manipulate someone's solar intelligence. It's way harder to manipulate someone who has a connection to their lunar intelligence or their lunar being, the feminine aspect of their being, because it's unconscious and subconscious. But when things are only in the conscious realm and they think they know everything, then you're dealing with an individual that is extremely egotistical, and it's so easy to cause psychic damage to someone that is perceiving reality from that viewpoint. They think they know everything. They think they're in complete control. They think they have everything understood, when in reality, that's not evolutionary nature. None of us are like that. We can't be. We all have an unconscious and a subconscious, and the most powerful people understand that and embrace it. Okay? So once again, this was wrapping up the nutshell. You have Satan and Yahweh representing that same Thamael correspondence with the twin serpent, the Saturnian with the solar. And that was pretty much what I wanted to share in regards to this video.